Sales and marketing will only get your agency so far. Most agencies hit a ceiling not because they can't get more leads, but because they don't have the capacity to take on more clients. That was me a few years ago. I was fully booked in my Notion consultancy, turning down new clients and completely burnt out. I tried to hire someone to help me, and it failed miserably. But once I put these 4 systems in place, I was able to delegate parts of my delivery process without sacrificing quality. Within months, I doubled my client roster and in turn, my revenue. If you don't know me, my name's Sam Bird. I'm an operations consultant and I've trained 100+ agency owners and sold over 3,000 system templates online. So in this video, I'll break down those exact systems and show you how to build them step by step. And if you stick around till the end of the video, I'll show you the one system that 90% of agency owners never think to build, but that makes all of this work. Whether you're an agency, coach, or consultant, this video will give you the systems that you need to grow without the chaos. So before you can delegate anything, you need to define what you do, and that's why this first system is a non-negotiable. Most agency owners don't realize it, but the biggest bottleneck in their business isn't sales, it's their delivery. Here's what usually happens. You've worked hard to build momentum, you've got consistent clients coming through the door, and you're finally growing. But with every new project, your calendar gets more crowded, your weekends disappear, and you're working longer hours just to keep up. And so naturally you think to yourself, I need help. So you make your first hire, but within a few weeks, you're frustrated. They're making mistakes, asking constant questions, and it's ending up being more work than if you were just to do it yourself. And I know because that's exactly what happened to me. I had more client work than I can handle in my Notion consultancy, and so I hired another Notion expert over on Fiverr. I dropped them into a live project thinking they could just pick things up themselves. The result? It was a disaster. The client deliverables were poor, I had to go in and fix all their mistakes, and in the end, I let them go and took the work back on myself. But here's what I realized. It wasn't their fault, it was mine. And that's because I had no delivery system. I hadn't defined what I did, how I did it, and what good even looked like. So what exactly is a delivery system? It's the structure that shows someone how you deliver your clients step by step your way. And it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the best delivery systems are dead simple. So here's how to build one. The first thing you want to do is map out your delivery process. Just open a blank doc or a whiteboard tool and jot down every single thing that happens between you signing a client all the way to you offboarding them. This will include the activities involved in onboarding, execution. Each item should be a task or activity that can be completed by one person in one sitting. This is often referred to as a process map, and we've got an entire video dedicated about how to create one in more detail that you can check out. Once you've done this, the next step is to go through your list or your boxes on your map and to circle every single item that you would like someone else to do for you. Because you're intending to delegate them, these are the processes that we are actually going to focus on systemizing. Now, this is where most people go wrong. They think to systemize their delivery, they need to create some 14-page long document called something like how to deliver client projects. But the truth is, a document like that takes hours and hours to create. No one will end up reading it and it can quickly become outdated. Instead, you want to create what I call micro SOPs. These are short, specific instructions on the tasks that you're looking to hand off. So for example, if one of those tasks is send the invoice, you can create a quick SOP titled how to send an invoice. Again, we also have an entire video dedicated about how to create SOPs and how to write them quickly that you can check out. I'd also like to note at this point that it might be wise not to write every single SOP. In some cases, it can actually be helpful to get the person to create the SOP for you. To do that, you can either record a Loom video of you going through that process, and then during your onboarding, ask them to turn that Loom video into an SOP. Or if you're planning to walk them through the process live on a call, you can then tell them to take those notes and turn it into a formal SOP for you. Either way, once you've got all of your SOPs written, the next step is to look back at the process map or list of tasks that we identified earlier and to take them and turn them into a task template. I use Notion for this and I set it up so that with one click, I can generate all the tasks that are needed for a new client project. And here's the key part to all of this. You can directly link your SOPs that you've created to the tasks themselves. So for example, a new client project is created. one of the tasks inside of there is to send the invoice, and right next to the task itself, we have the SOP that says how to send an invoice. The person I'm hiring can see what they need to do, when they need to do it, and how to do it, because I've put all this information out in front of them for them. And that's it. This simple structure saved me hours every single week. It also meant the quality stayed consistent even when I wasn't doing the work myself. And once we have this in place, the rest of the systems finally have something to stand on. So this next system is where I made the biggest mistake, and it cost me time, money, and a whole lot of energy. Now, most agency owners treat hiring like a one-off task. You need someone, so you write up a quick job description, you drop it on 1 or 2 platforms and hope the right person finds you. And that's exactly what I did when I found someone on Fiverr. I had a vague understanding of what I wanted them to do, and I picked the very first person that seemed okay. But because their responsibilities weren't clearly defined, and because they had no systems to help them, they were doomed for failure. When I did let them go, it was a real wake-up call. I realized I needed a system for hiring, one that was actually going to open my net for potential candidates and filter through people that weren't quite right. So if you're stuck thinking, I just can't find good people, chances are it's not the people, it's your systems. So let me show you how to build one. First, instead of starting with a job description, start with your processes. Go back to your delivery system and take a look at the tasks you circled, the ones that you're looking to delegate. Then turn that list into the responsibilities you have on your job description. And this is the mistake most people make. They write vague, fluffy descriptions like, you'll help with projects and admin. But great candidates want clarity. They want to know what they're going to own and what success looks like. So your job description should be focused on process ownership. Once you've written your job description, the next step is to turn it into a job ad. And this is important. A job description and a job ad are not the same thing. The job ad is about marketing the role. You're not just listing duties, you're trying to sell the opportunity. Why should someone want to work for you? What makes this role exciting? What impact will they have? This is the part that I used to neglect completely. But when I started writing job ads like sales copy, everything changed. The quality of applicants went up and I stopped having to beg people to apply. Now that you've got a solid ad, it's time to broadcast it absolutely everywhere. Don't just post it on one job board and call it a day. Share it on your socials, post it in niche forums, add it to your email newsletter, tell your clients about it. You want to cast a wide net, especially if you're looking for a specialized role. And then finally, you need a simple, lightweight hiring funnel. You don't need an 8-round process with panel interviews and reference checks, but you do need to make it easy for people to apply and for the wrong ones to slip through. Here's what that looks like. Step 1 of the hiring funnel is to have a small applicant task. Now, this shouldn't be a huge unpaid project, but instead a simple 30-minute task that is going to identify if the person has the abilities that you're looking for. Step 2 then is to shortlist those candidates. Based on the execution of the task itself, work out which ones you want to take on and which ones you want to leave. From that list, you're then going to ask them to join you on an interview. In the interview, we're able to deep dive into their communication style, their understanding of their role, and what they expect. And an optional 4th step is to have them join you on a trial. This can be a 2-week trial period to confirm their work ethic and output. This can be helpful if you're looking for a full-time role, but don't want to take the risk of hiring someone full-time head on. Now, here's what's great about this system. Once you set it up, you can use it again and again for each of your different new hires. Whether you're hiring for a full-time role, a contractor, a VA, the process can stay relatively the same. And this is exactly what helped me find my first successful hire. I followed this system, and the person I took through the 2-week trial was great, and he was finally able to take over the key parts of delivery that I needed done. But even if you hire the perfect person, they'll fail without this next system. And I learned that the hard way. After I finally made a successful hire using the hiring system I just shared, I thought I was in the clear. They had the skills, they had the right attitude, and they hit the ground running. But a month in, I got a message that I was not expecting. They told me they were confused, overwhelmed, and wasn't sure if they were successful after each project. And they were right. I dropped them into chaos with no onboarding, no context, and no expectations. I'd spent all this time creating SOPs and documenting processes, but I hadn't taken the time to show them how it all fit together. It's like handing handing someone a jigsaw puzzle without giving them the picture on the front of the box. That's when I realized onboarding isn't just about handing off SOPs and giving access to tools, it's about aligning on expectations. When someone joins your team, whether it's full-time, part-time, they need more than just tasks. They need to understand how you work, what matters, and most importantly, how to be successful in your team. So let me show you the system I now use to onboard every single team member. It starts with a structured onboarding checklist. This is a task list that outlines everything that the hire needs to review within the first 1 or 2 weeks of joining you. It can include things like aligning on company policies, reading key SOPs, logging into tools, reviewing sample client projects, joining key channels, and even completing a few low-risk tasks to build up confidence. The goal here is to remove friction and confusion. You want them feeling productive by day 2, not thinking what to do and where to start. But the checklist alone isn't enough. So the next thing I do is set up daily one-to-ones for the first 2 weeks. Now I know you're thinking, daily check-ins, isn't that a bit of overkill? But trust me, this is one of the highest leverage things you can do when first having someone join your team, because it gives them the space to ask questions, flag issues, receive feedback, with the idea that you won't be bottlenecking yourself in the future. So I book in a quick 15 to 30 minute call at the start of every single day for the first 2 weeks. After that, we can drop to the usual bi-weekly or weekly check-in, but those first 10 check-ins make all the difference. Now here's the final and often forgotten part of a good onboarding system. You need an exit plan. That means before they even start, you've already decided what outcomes they should be hitting by week 2, any red flags that you should be looking out for, and if they were to have to leave the team, what things you would take back on yourself. And this isn't about expecting failure to happen. It's about removing the emotional friction if things do go wrong, because now you've already planned for it. I call it hiring with a parachute. You hope that you never have to pull it, but you can sleep a whole lot better knowing it's there. So now you've mapped out your delivery system, you've hired the right person, and you've onboarded them properly. But even with all of that in place, none of it works unless people actually follow through. And that's why this next system is so important and actually makes all of your hard work work. Because here's the truth. People don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. When I first started building a team, I assumed that if I handed someone an SOP and a task, they'd just get the thing done. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. You need a system to keep everyone accountable, a way to track progress, handle issues, and keep everyone aligned. So here's what that looks like. The first part of this system is KPIs, or key performance indicators. Every person on the team owns 1 or 2 metrics that tells us how well they're performing in their role. Nothing complex, just one number that gives us clarity. For example, if someone is responsible for building websites, their KPIs might be project completion rate, NPS scores for all website projects, and average number of revisions needed. The point is to make performance visible so we're not guessing and we can catch things before they go wrong. And these KPIs are reviewed with everyone every single week. Which brings me to the second part of the system, which is issue and idea tracking. After I built a team, I quickly realized that they were seeing things that I wasn't. Little friction points, recurring questions, or improvements to processes that could be made. But unless we captured an area to track these ideas and issues, they were quickly forgotten. So now we have a simple system where people can capture issues, things that are broken, confusing, or slowing us down, and ideas, suggestions of how we can improve processes, customer experience, or tools. And that brings us to the third and final piece of this system, the team weekly meeting. Now, this isn't just a status update, it's a focused, structured session where we review each person's KPIs, we identify and try to solve any issues and ideas, and realign on priorities for the week ahead. It's short, usually only 30 to 45 minutes, but it's one of the most powerful rituals that we have in our business. Because here's the thing about accountability, it's not about micromanaging, it's simply about having a rhythm, a cadence to how you check in with your team. When people know they're going to have to share their progress every single week, they follow through. And when issues are raised in real time, they get solved instead of snowballing. So you've got the 4 key systems that you need to scale your business. But there's one mistake that you might come up against, and that's something that I always see agency owners do, which is spending hours and hours on writing SOPs that no one ever reads. But the truth is, and particularly in creative businesses like agencies, SOPs aren't always the right tool for the right job. And if you're not careful, they can end up sitting in a folder collecting dust. If you want to know what to create instead, you can check out this video here. It talks about the different types of tools that we have in our toolbox other than SOPs. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.